Good morning. Over the past 3 decades or so, advances in technology have revolutionized the way we plan, book, and experience travel. From the conveniences of online booking platforms to mobile apps and social media, technology has made travel more accessible, efficient, and enjoyable. For the most part, anyway. Now, generative AI, digital identity, and other advanced technologies promise to bring about more change, including delivering on the long-awaited promise of true personalization. But are travelers embracing this new tech? Are they willing to give up enough personal information to enable personalization? Has the industry sufficiently addressed the frustrations of what now legacy technology is before we move on to new? Or will this new technology fix everything? Anyone familiar with Phocuswright research knows that we typically look at results by differences in age and other travel metrics. But since we're talking about technology, we thought it would also be interesting to look at the results from our most recent research by level of adoption of technology, new technology. So we asked travelers which best describes their adoption of technology. Early adopters actively seek new technologies, like to be among the first to use them. They represent 25% of the travelers, are most likely to be less than 55 years old, tend to spend more on travel, take more trips than average. And that spended number of trips is actually driven by the 35-plus aged traveler. Mainstream adopters like to try new technologies once they have become popular. They represent 50% of travelers. They don't exhibit any age skews, but they do take slightly more trips than average and spend a little more. The spend is driven by the older travelers. And late adopters wait to try new technologies until most people they know have used and recommended them. They represent 25% of the traveling population. They are most likely to be 55 and over, but there is a notable number of 18 to 54-year-olds in this age group. The late adopters do spend less and take fewer trips than average. So let's keep these 3 groups in mind as we look at the rest of the data. Almost 2/3 of travelers agree that technology enhances their vacation experience. Now, this might not sound very positive, but 27% are actually neutral about this. That indicates that there is room for improvement throughout the journey. There is also wide variation between tech adoption levels. Maybe not surprising, 82% of early adopters agree that technology enhances the experience, but only 41% of late adopters agree with this. Mobile phones, they've become an extension of ourselves, almost like another appendage. Ever leave home without your mobile phone and felt like you were missing a key part of yourself? Essentially, we can do most anything from a mobile device that we can do from a computer, and maybe even more. We could argue that mobile devices might be a little more difficult to do some things given the size of the screen, but apps came along. An answer to our frustrations with mobile websites? Perhaps. But yet mobile apps are only used by a little more than 2/3 of travelers for planning and booking their trips. Nearly half of travelers use mobile apps because they make managing their trips easier. Easier to get notifications, easier to access and manage information on the go. And more than 1/3 indicate they're actually easier than mobile websites. So it's not surprising that early adopters are more apt to see that broader appeal of mobile apps. Travelers 55 plus diverge on using that mobile apps are easier than mobile websites, and they are essentially less likely to plan and book with a mobile-first resource anyway. So while mobile websites still reign for planning travel, 84% of travelers use mobile apps while in destination. Almost all, 94% of early adopters are leveraging them. 88% of mainstream adopters as well. And even our late adopters can't resist opening an app while they're on their trips, with 64% of them doing so. So researching restaurants is the biggest reason travelers pull out their phones and open an app. Checking in for flights or hotels is also among the top uses for mobile apps. So travel suppliers need to make sure that this functionality works efficiently. There are a few opportunities for tours and activities to delight travelers as well. They use mobile apps to look for, book, and manage their in-destination activities. And given the number of travelers using apps, it's important to make sure they have a good experience while using them. 2/3 express some type of frustration using mobile apps. And I don't know if it's good news or bad news, but there isn't really one big issue that frustrates travelers. Minimalization might be the key to delighting more travelers, keeping notifications relevant, required app space low, and the user experience streamlined. And only ask for critical information, personal information. Early adopters continue to seek a more streamlined approach and express particular frustration with notifications, needing multiple apps, and missing features. Especially surprising to us is having a bad experience with a mobile app does not fully dissuade travelers from using that company again in the future. Just over half are still very likely to work with a travel company again, even after having had a bad experience with their mobile app. Early adopters are most forgiving, with 70% still being likely to use them, but our late adopters are a little less so at 47%. So this is good news for loyalty, but the bottom line is there's still room for improvement with mobile apps, and travel companies shouldn't get complacent. So that's the state of legacy technology that travelers use to plan, book, and experience travel. I think we all agree that technology in travel still has a ways to go, so maybe generative AI will solve all of our problems. It's certainly been the biggest story over the past 2 years, the benefits versus the concerns of using it, Google enabling itinerary building, Gen AI and super apps, discussions on our very own stage, AI travel agents, Gen AI being a top focus for our industry leaders. But we have our ear to the ground, waiting for the next big announcement. It's astonishing the level of awareness that generative AI has reached in such a short amount of time among the general population. 2 years into the hype, and 85% of travelers have at least heard of it. That's up from 79% last year. And younger travelers, 18 to 34, exceeded 90% awareness. Early adopters are nearing saturation, with 95% aware of Gen AI. Even the late adopters couldn't escape the buzz, with 71% having heard of it. But what do travelers really think about it? In general, travelers view Gen AI very positively, the words on the right, as opposed to negatively, the words on the left. It is more useful than not. It is creative. It's also viewed as exciting and easy to use. But those aware of Gen AI are least likely to associate it with being safe and, to a lesser extent, accurate. Concerns with Gen AI may stem in part from the common knowledge that it is prone to hallucinations, where it does fabricate false information presented as fact. And again, considering the buzz really started in November of 2022, usage of Gen AI is already at levels that just can't be ignored, and continues to grow. Usage of Gen AI grew 77% since last year alone, going from 22% in 2023 to 39% in 2024. And about half or more of travelers under 54 have used it. And those 55 plus have nearly doubled their usage, going from just 11% to 20%. Gen AI usage is most prevalent among those 35 to 54, especially for food relating and dining nightlife purposes. And again, the early adopters are significantly more likely to use Gen AI across all purposes, and the late adopters are least likely. But of interest to us in this room is that nearly half of these travelers have used Gen AI for their leisure trips. Putting this into the context of all leisure travelers, 18% have used Gen AI for their trips. And when we think about how travelers can use Gen AI for their trips, it's really limitless, with opportunities for everyone in this room. The top use cases of Gen AI in travel are currently to get ideas about where to go and for things to do, as well as researching flights, although most Gen AI solutions don't have live pricing yet, so that's likely just to find some researching the airlines and the routes. Late adopters are slightly more likely to use Gen AI while in destination, such as things to do and the language translations. Travelers aged 35 to 54 are also the heaviest, most consistent users of GenAI for all these travel cases. And we asked travelers where they would prefer to use GenAI solutions, directly through a generative AI platform like ChatGPT or Google Gemini, integrated into a travel provider's site, or both. And no matter how we looked at it, by age or technology adoption, the trends were the same. Travelers want to be able to use it where they are planning their trips at the time. So looking to the near future, nearly 3/4 of travelers who have used GenAI for their trips in the recent past plan to do it again. This is an extremely positive indicator for the future intersection of travel and GenAI. And those who used it in the past for travel, they plan on using it for even more aspects of their trip planning. And their priorities will be similar to past usage, with looking for ideas on the destination selection being at the top. On average, travelers indicated 3 to 4 uses in the past, and in the future, they expect to leverage it for 5 or more of these use cases. So they're clearly happy with the experience so far, and be ready to allow travelers to book and reserve their trip components. 40% expressed interest in doing this. Of the travelers who said they do not plan on using GenAI for travel in the next 12 months, they will need to be convinced that their current methods are superior to using GenAI, because 43% are content with the way they plan their travel today. Only a few express having had a bad experience with GenAI, and just over 1/4 have privacy concerns. Privacy and security of our personal information is a big concern in our daily lives, so it's not a surprise that travelers aren't just concerned with privacy as it relates to using GenAI. And as one of the promises of GenAI is true personalization, meaning AI agents can tailor every aspect of assisting us with shopping, booking, and experiencing travel, travelers need to be willing to sacrifice some personal information in order to do this. But yet, right now, only a little over 1/3 of travelers are willing to give up that relevant personal information in order to get better recommendations. The early adopters, those under 55, are much more willing to make this sacrifice. Our late adopters and our older travelers are a little more hesitant. And travelers aren't comfortable just sharing any information. It has to be connected to travel in some way. Even our early adopters aren't comfortable sharing all kinds of information. They have concerns with sharing social account information and access to apps on their phones. So as we look to the future of travel and a changing demographic, expectations from technology are only going to grow. Older travelers are a bit more content with the conveniences that technology has already provided and will slowly become a smaller proportion of the traveling population. And our younger travelers, who already have higher expectations of technology and what's available today, are going to represent a larger proportion. And the demands on the travel industry and technology are going to grow exponentially. And yet, when travelers are asked what they want from technology in the future, it is above all else to save them money. Perhaps helping travelers find the best deal in the quickest way possible is the winning ticket that may be facilitated by GenAI as it gets better at incorporating real-time pricing. There is a wide range of other needs that travelers are hoping technology can assist with, and we know major disruption doesn't happen by asking consumers. So, in the meantime, there are a few smaller things that travel companies can do to help travelers. Technology enhances the trip experience, and it isn't viewed as scary or overwhelming. And while travelers feel that technology does make travel easier, they do have frustrations, so there is still room for improvement and more efficiency in the future. And mobile apps can and do make leisure travel easier. So when developing mobile apps, keep in mind that the things that make travelers uneasy, such as requiring too much personal information, could further the adoption. Generative AI has a healthy level of awareness, and it's growing. And travelers are quite happy with GenAI so far, but it's still in the early days and has a long way to go before it becomes a mainstream part of the traveler's journey. We expect GenAI and the autonomous agents in particular could shake up the travel industry and e-commerce landscapes dramatically in the coming years. 40% of travelers are expecting to book with Gen AI in the near future. Travelers are willing to give up some privacy to receive communications, provided that the messaging is customized to the traveler's needs and wants at the right time. Brands asking for information that doesn't appear to be directly related to travel causes a level of discomfort and is off-putting. So, as you're saving travelers time and money with apps that leverage an AI travel agent, doing everything from providing ideas to navigating the traveler through their in-destination activities in their preferred language, be sure you're doing it in a way that makes the traveler feel comfortable that their personal information and privacy are intact. You can learn much more in our two-part series, Travelers in Tech 2024, available on Phocuswright.com. Thank you.